to myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say to you.
Good morning, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. Thursday brings me Supermac and Gibbo. Good morning, lads.
Good morning, fellas.
Good morning, Steve. Hiya, John.
Good
Hi,
to
mate.
see you, lads. Good to see you. And as always, it's those people in the chat who decide which direction the show goes in. Always plenty to talk about with Newcastle United. So if you've got a question for the lads, then get them in. And John Askew was first in this morning with his question, which is, morning, everyone. Saturday's game against Liverpool is crucial, but to have a chance in the final, will we have to think slightly outside the box? The form guide doesn't make for pleasant reading. To confuse United, Manchester, mate, please, not United. Would you consider playing Wilson with Isak, playing a number 10 role just behind and with Maxi on the left? I just have to think a decent chance we might need to shake it up a bit. Tom Dixon at the top of that said, it's great to see that ESM and Miguel Almiron are back in training this week ahead of the Liverpool game, which is good news, Tom. But yeah, change of formation, Malcolm. Is it something you would consider as a manager? Because, you know, Newcastle, they're in a bit of a rut. Six out of the last 7 games have ended in a draw, but it's a rut where they're still picking up points. It's a rut which we would have taken any time over the last 14 years, going to some of these places away from home and getting points and not instead of getting a hiding. But from our perspective, is it chance to is it the time to start tinkering a week before a cup final?
Only if you can strengthen the side, I think, rather than weaken it. What I would like to see is the suggestion of that Isak play off of Wilson. Excellent on that, but I wouldn't play St. Maximin. I happened to see a piece that he did on some forum or whatever on the internet, and I read it, and he thought he had a really good game last weekend. I thought he was absolutely shocking. He didn't get a solitary cross in. He didn't get a single shot in. So if and the amount of ball that he has over 90 minutes it's probably more than any other player on the pitch. But he doesn't achieve anything at all. And so I would play Gordon out there on the left, Isak off of Wilson, slightly to the right, maybe. I think that would work really well. Gordon, of course, he's cup tied, and I think is Isak. John, is he able to play?
Yes, he can play in the final. Yes, he can play in the final.
All right, Isak can play. Excellent.
Yes,
excellent. But I think though that this is a really important game, and we seriously need a result rather than giving certain guys a run out. I think a result is all important.
I think the only thing I would say to that, Malcolm, before I come to you, John, is, and I made a point of this earlier in the week, is that should the worst happen and we get injuries to certain players, either in the Liverpool game or in the final itself, we're going to be forced to call upon quite a few people on that bench who've not really played much game time over the last few months, and that's the risk, I guess, you have with all teams. But you looked at the bench. You looked at the bench at Bournemouth, and you saw Fraser, you saw Paul Dummett, you saw Matt Ritchie. There's 3 players I'll pick out together, Mal, who, if they've played 10 minutes, 15 minutes of football in the last 3 months, I'd be very surprised.
Yeah, I can follow that train of thought totally, Steve. The only concern is, are we treating Liverpool as a warm-up for Wembley, or are we treating Liverpool for 3 points for the Champions League? Because if
Good,
we're
John.
going for 3 points of the Champions League, I don't want to see Dummett or Richie or anybody like that, or Jamal Lewis or anybody like that in the starting lineup. Thank you very much. And I don't think we can give up on the Champions League at this stage, Steve. If we sacrifice the 3 points against Liverpool and then don't beat Manchester United, we'll ruin the rest of the season. Because, we're off the pace, there's nothing to play for, etc. I mean, I do think, lads, that, not buying a centre forward and a midfield player, having let Wood and Shelby go, has come back to bite me in the bum. Because our squad is so thin. I mean, you look at our squad, and in terms of starters, lads, it's almost the 11 that played at Bournemouth plus Isaac and Gordon, because there's Bruno that can't play, but include him. And then the rest, I mean, he rarely starts with Murphy. He always brings him on. But for the starting lineup, for this game or the games after the final, we've got about 14 to 15 players, and that's it, that we would actually consider starting, because we wouldn't consider the ones you were talking about, Steve, as starters normally. So that is come back to bite our bum. But I want us to keep going in the league, because supposing the worst happens in a cup final, and I'm used to the worst happening in a cup final, but I'm praying this time it's going to be different. But suppose it wasn't. Supposing we played magnificently in the cup final and lost 2-1. Now, if we've sacrificed the points against Liverpool and we've got City to go to as the next game, what have we got for the rest of the season? Because we're not in the FA Cup anymore. We've got to try to beat Liverpool. Also, you know what? I think our best chance of beating Manchester United is by beating Liverpool and going in there in a good mood.
I agree wholeheartedly, John.
We've found out how to win again. We're feeling good. We don't want to go down there with yet another draw, because you can't draw in the cup final. They take it extra time and penalties. We don't want to go down with another draw, and going down with a defeat is unthinkable, because the mood would be lower in the snake's belly. The best way of beating Manchester United is by beating Liverpool. And with that in mind, and we don't know what the situation is physically, I think we actually do. I think Almir and San Maximin and Wilson will be okay, and Willock will not be. Willock's got to struggle to make the cup final. He's got a hamstring, he's struggling to make the cup final. He will not be risked tomorrow. I want to see Gordon play tomorrow, because I think he's a bit of a breath of fresh air, and I don't think it's dawned on him yet to be leggy or stale or anything like that, because he's hardly played for Everton before he come here. I think he's one of the guys that's up and running, and is a bit of a breath of fresh air as far as I'm concerned. And points being necessary, and not having Bruno tomorrow, and probably not having Willock tomorrow, I would like to see Gordon somewhere on the park. And I think you said that yourself, Malcolm, as well. You would like to see him play.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. John, we're getting absolutely nothing out of St. Maximin. He is, and he uses up so much possession for no advantage whatsoever. And I just think, come on now, the game is so simple. He complicates it, and he's doing more of a circus act than actually playing 90 minutes of football.
The only thing I would give him credit for, and I agree, and even by his standards, I think he's been flatter than normal. The only thing I would give him credit for is on our equaliser. He kept the ball in when it looked almost certain to go out. He then went down the wing and was the feed before a terrific run off the ball by Longstaff and a terrific shot.
Oh, fantastic run.
And Miggy just had to stick it in. But what concerns me as well, boys, apart from Steve going missing regularly, what concerns me as well is there's a few dipping. I mean, if we park Miggy to one side, because we could do a program on Miggy every night of the week and still have something fresh to say. But there's others that are not quite what they were. I mean, I don't think Dan Burn. I thought Dan Burn was shocking at Bournemouth, bless him, and I'm a Dan Burn fan. But all of a sudden, he looked like a left back who was an 8'6" centre half, and he hasn't looked like that recently. But I mean, he was awful. But I mean, there's been a dip. Willock's
and that's
a dip
for the first time.
Yeah, Almiron's been a dip. He got his goal back. He not on work rate. Good gracious, but you know, there's been a few that are off the pace. And isn't it interesting, guys? This is just a one to throw in. Isn't it interesting, in my case, that you look at the teams that's overachieved at the top this season, that have overachieved, and that, I mean, is a huge compliment. They're not supposed to be where they are. We are that. Certainly, we're not supposed to be fourth after last season. And Arsenal's that. They weren't supposed to be top and at one time by about 5 or 6 points. They haven't won in 4 now. That's including the cup. They haven't won in 4, and we've had 5 draws out of 6. Both of which have got limited size squads. Both and during the week said that the 2 teams to their this season are Arsenal and Newcastle United. And they're the 2 that at the moment have gone off the boil and look a bit leggy and look a bit would win because Arsenal's in the situation when they've overachieved. The mental thing, the young players they aren't used to being at the top of the league, etc., is caught out on them, while the wily old birds of Man City and yes, dare I say, Man United inspire are sort of going along fine. It is intriguing, but I'm dead concerned, you know, because I'm grateful for where we are. I'm grateful for 1 defeat in 22. I'm grateful for, even though I suffer from vertigo, for being 4th in the league. That's all great for me. But at the moment, we look as if we're off the boil. We look as if the cup finals come at the wrong time in the season for us because we're not quite what we were.
Nick C's watching us from Brisbane in Australia. Good morning to you. He says, should we be concerned, Malcolm, with our form going into the final? John's made a point of that now. Do you think we should be concerned? We've found a way to not get beaten, Malcolm. We need to find a way to win more regularly.
Yes, sure. And that's going to be a major problem for Man United to overcome. But yes, we've gone off somewhat to what we were. And I don't think that we are, we're not causing enough danger in the opposing penalty area for the position that we are in the league, and the fact that we still have only lost 1. Everybody else has lost a lot more than Newcastle, but. What we need to do is use that rather than rely on it, is use it to springboard forward. And I don't think that that's been happening.
I think
how many shots are we getting in? We're not getting in enough. That's for sure. At Bournemouth, other than the goal, was there another shot?
No, I mean this is a tremendous concern. And for me, what I was thinking, guys, is we say we know how not to lose, and that's true. You've got to look at the loss column, and it's got 1 in it. We've learned how not to lose, but we've forgotten how to win. And we have only learned how not to lose by drawing every game. I mean, we've drawn 5 of the last 6, and the one we won was Fulham when we got a 1-0 in the 89th minute. Or that was a draw as well, and that would have been a nap and a full house, 6 out of 6. Now, when we get to the cup final, you can't draw. That gives you extra time in the penalty kick-out. You can't draw. Our favourite result is not on the table at Wembley. We've either got to win or lose. and it's wondering how we're going to win without playing for the lotteries of penalty shootouts. It's how we're going to win. And what's bothered me as well is even when we have created, and Malcolm was right that we haven't done enough, but even when we have, for example, at home to West Ham, Callum Wilson should have had a hat-trick. He got one. He got swallowed up in the penalty area on a similar ball for his second one, and he got a free header, which he stuck straight at the keeper. Now, I'm not having to go at Callum Wilson, but I mean, he's our best bet for goals. And when he's missing, and he hadn't scored for 10 prior to that, when he's missing, we're in a struggle. I'm pleased that our two top goal scorers have scored the last time they played. Wilson stopped his drought, and Almiron stopped his drought. But we've got to start creating more. And we've only got one chance left. We can't go to the cup final in a negative state of mind. I mean, there's no greater fan of Joe Harvey than me, unless it's Malcolm sitting there as well, because we're so grateful to the guy. But I always had a little thought between the semi-final of the cup and the final of the cup in 1974. He brought in all the kids, Crossan and Bomber, Blackhole and whatever, and we had a run of no results, and he kept a couple of people fresh for the final. We went in the final, and it wasn't a tap you could turn on and off and on and off. Liverpool just kept playing the same team and winning week after week after week between the semi-final and the final, and they continued the same way in the final. I don't think you can turn the tap off and turn it back on. And if we don't get a win against Liverpool, we will be attempting to turn the tap on at Wembley, it having been just a dribble in the games before Wembley. And I think that is almost impossible. And that is why, in some ways, and I know it's a silly thing to say, but in some ways, this Liverpool game is as big as the final, because it can give us the boost to go in the final to get the win in the final. If we see Liverpool off, they're still Liverpool, whatever they're like away from home, and they're hopeless away from home this season. You've just got to look at the record. It's 2-2-6, 1-2, drawn 2, lost 6. Is that a Liverpool away record? Never in the month of Sundays. It is this season. So, but we've got to beat them to have a good chance in the final. Don't you think, Mal?
Yes, absolutely, John. And one thing, I've said this before, but I feel that it's a very powerful thing in the game, and that is getting a second goal when you're 1-0 up. And all of a sudden, the change that the game has taken for the opposition, oh dear me, it's one for dropping the chin on the chest for them, that we seem up and are happy to hang on to that, relying on the defence not to concede. We've got to stop doing that. We've got to take the game at 1-0 up to the opposition and look to get a second goal. And whilst Newcastle are attacking the opposition box, the opposition aren't going to score, for heaven's sake. And I think once we get a goal up, it's almost as if it's nerves kick in, and we've got to calm down. Calm down, just keep playing, and take the game to the opposition.
Yeah, thanks for all the birthday wishes. I am another year older today, 51 today, lads. 51.
I had a look at him and I thought he's a little year older, or he's had a hell of a night last night. I wasn't certain which it was. Probably a bit of both.
Maybe both.
Yeah, I would agree. Callum Wilson's an interesting one, Malcolm. I mean, he got back with a goal a couple of weeks ago, but it was disappointing to see the hamstring injury rear its head again. He came out, he does his own podcast, each week and talked about it, and he said that he felt a niggle, and he'd rather err on the side of caution. I'm not sure how you would feel about that. I mean, you yourself played at the highest level, played for Newcastle, and I guess would you prefer your player being honest like that, rather than trying to run through a pain
yes,
barrier
absolutely.
and more damage? Yeah.
Well, with a hamstring, when you've got an injury, you pretty much can't run. And if you try to force the situation and start to stride out, the hamstring fortunately, thank heaven, problem not ever. So I obviously have long hamstrings, but those who are cursed with short hamstrings, I think one who used to suffer, John, back then in the 70s was David Craig, who missed a huge number of games.
Finals. Yeah. I mean, the one thing with Callum Wilson, and I think Callum Wilson has got to accept and does accept, and so does Eddie Howe, that his body's not up to doing as much as the player's body is, because he's been battered during the years and he's just injury prone. Some people are and some people aren't. But it's the one reason, guys, in my humble opinion, as Newcastle continue to grow in weight, the League Cup final in just over a week's time. But that's only the start of things, not the end of things. We will go on because of the new owners and the ambition within the club to push and push and push for more domestic trophies, for Europe trophies, etc., etc. It is the one reason why Callum Wilson will not necessarily be centre forward in 3 years' time when we're going for something, because he's unreliable. I mean, we had no idea. We get the team sheet an hour before Bournemouth. In fact, I got a tip before that from somebody down there. It said he's not even got on the bus to go to the game down in Bournemouth, which means he's not there, which means he's injured. And sure enough, he was. And we never hear about it during the week. We don't know for certain until an hour before we kick off against Liverpool whether Callum Wilson will be playing or not, because there's always that risk. And, since the World Cup, since he come back from England in the World Cup, either because of injury or because of illness, he's been sort of iffy all the way through. And it is a problem. Of course, the lad's not going to take a risk at Bournemouth a fortnight or so before he's going to play at Wembley, because he's going to want to play at Wembley, isn't he? So in Nigel, that's me out at Bournemouth. What happens against Liverpool, etc., because but you don't take risks, as Malcolm said, and Malcolm knows a lot better than either of us do, because he's been there. You don't take risks with Hammy, and that's why I'm saying that we won't see Willock this weekend, because it was said he has a hamstring injury, and they're not going to risk him this weekend, the week before the final, and thereby hangs a tail, guys, because if we look at the Liverpool game, all three who could start at home that's Almiron, Wilson and St. Maximum, have been on treatment this week. I think all three will be fit, but all three have been on treatment this week. Then you look at the midfield, and we haven't got Bruno and we haven't got Willock. We are short, aren't we? Who plays in midfield after Joe Linton and Longstaff? It's got to be either Anderson or you rejig it and play, play Gordon and let him attack just behind the number 10, the number 9, as he did when he come on.
You could play Murphy, John.
Sorry?
You could play Murphy.
In midfield rather than on the wing.
Yeah.
It needs a bit of rejigging, because he's really a winger. Outside of Anderson, we haven't got a centre midfield to play on Saturday. There is that position. No. You can rejig and bring Isaac in, or bring Gordon in, or bring Murphy in with a different formation. But we're short in midfield and we're short up front. That's the bottom line.
Definitely are.
Yeah.
A little bit of concern, I guess, from everybody who does this show and people in the chat. Talking about the 76 Cup final, of course, which was in the League Cup. Newcastle did win the game the week before that. Just looking at the season, 23rd of February, Bolton Wanderers versus Newcastle United in the FA Cup. Newcastle won 2-1. Looking the game back before that, though, we did play Liverpool away and we did lose 2-0 in the league. But yeah, look, it's exciting. I think what we've got to remember is we've just got to enjoy this whole going to Wembley scenario. It's a long way away from where we were 12 months ago, facing a relegation battle. And just try and concentrate on the positives. I know it's difficult at times, but we've just got to enjoy where we are at the moment. Clubber Lang says someone's just rang me, sneezing and coughing down the phone. Asked if I wanted to buy ice cubes and ice lollies and ice pops and ice cream. Bloody cold caller. Yeah, change your number, Clubber. Halfway through the show, time for the ads. Thanks as always to our sponsors, Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks to Mr. Vicky's sauces, handmade in Cumbria. You can find them at mrvickies.co.uk, email info@mrvickies.co.uk, or telephone 01768 210 102. Thanks to Blowhole Brewery. You can find them at blowholebrewery.co.uk. Beers brewed on the River Tyne. And thanks to United Group Travel Limited, UK Coach Holidays, based in Morpeth. Telephone 01670 362 460 and mobile 07957 141 654. Graham, your driver, Beverly answering your calls, looking after you on your tour. Thanks also to 3 Property, who specialise in sourcing investment properties for their clients who are looking to invest in the North East. They offer a full in-house service from sourcing the deals to managing the properties for you. They've done over 100 plus deals in the past 12 months for clients all over the UK. Give the guys a follow on Instagram, matty.patter_northeast property and phil.reed_northeast property, or email phil@3property.co.uk if you're interested in getting a good property deal. Thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wales and Newcastle, and the guys who run our website, nufcmatters.com. Thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the videos and the technology side of things. If you want to subscribe to the channel, hit the subscribe button underneath the video today. Hit the thumb up to like the channel and click share to your social media. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, and the rest. If you want to become a member, you pay a £25 one-off fee, and you can go to the website, nufcmatters.com, and find membership pack, or put your smartphone over the QR code and it will take you straight there. If you subscribe, we do give you a free car sticker. All you need to do is email john@nufcmatters.com and he'll post you one out. We also support the food bank on this channel, nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk. You'll find the match day bucket where you can make a virtual donation. We've also got some events coming up over the next couple of months. First off, we've got an evening with Steve Howie at the Tyneside Irish Centre, Friday the 24th of February. Tickets are available from our website, nufcmatters.com, and they are priced £15, not $50, as you can see on the poster. An evening with Nobby Solano is also at the Tyneside Irish Centre, Saturday the 25th of March. Tickets are £15. Book now at nufcmatters.com. And an evening with Frank Clark and John Gibson, Thursday the 20th of April, again at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets are £15 and you book now at nufcmatters.com. Supermac and John Gibson will also be at Felling Cricket Club on the 16th of February. To buy tickets for that, contact the venue direct. We've got a whole host of t-shirts available from our website, nufcmatters.com. Gives you plenty of ideas for presents, for birthdays, anniversaries, you name it. Get your Anthony Gordon t-shirts and your Wembley t-shirts today. Okay, on to more comments in the chat. And I did see a pretty good question there from Paul Patterson. He says, how important do the panel think the amount of games that Man United have between now and the final compared to our single game against Liverpool? Is it a positive or a negative, Mal, playing more games that Manchester United have had, obviously European competition, etc.?
Yeah, it's a really good question, is that. Personally, I don't feel it's a negative. I used to really enjoy playing games a week, and it seemed an eternity between a Saturday game and a Saturday game. So yeah, I was very happy, very content to play 2 games in a week. A lot of players aren't. They much prefer to have a large break in between games. So it really depends on the individual. I think there's a slight advantage to Arsenal in terms of the more games you have, the more injuries you're going to pick up. So Man United are at danger. And, plus the fact, when you think that tonight they're playing Barcelona, that is no easy game by any means. So Man United are going to be fully stretched in these games prior to the final. So there's every chance of mishap for them. But personally, I used to enjoy 2 games a week. Preferred that to a Saturday to Saturday break.
John, what's your thoughts? European football, does it get in the way for Manchester United, or playing those regular games? Is that a better thing than Newcastle having a long gap between the Liverpool game and the final?
I hope it gets in the way. I mean, any help we can get, I'm ready to take. I hope it gets in the way and they lose a couple of players. And I don't think we need any more games. We're looking mentally tired. I don't think we want as many games as they've got, because our squad is so much smaller than theirs, and therefore the room for manoeuvring is so much more difficult. And Eddie doesn't like manoeuvring, he just picks an unchanged team whenever he can. So, he is reluctant. We haven't got the players to do too much with. I mean, outside of the squad that's playing, and we haven't got Bruno for obvious reasons. You only look at Isaac and Gordon, and after that, you think you're dipping very much into genuine subs and not starters. So that's not a big squad in any circumstance. And I think one more game for us, that's fine. Please, let's try to win it, because it will change the whole mood going down there. And yes, if Rashford wants to get a little knock and do a Callum Wilson, find a little bit of tightness and decide he doesn't want to play at Wembley and risk anything, then I will be more than happy, and I'll thoroughly understand, Marcus, if you want to do that, because I think it would be good to rest up those legs. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I just want the final to be more competitive from our point of view than the last time we met, which is ironically our last Wembley Cup final. 99 was Newcastle v Manchester United. But Manchester United are not the team they were then. Manchester United completed the treble that season. They won the league, they won the FA Cup, obviously, against us, and they won the Champions League. This Manchester United team isn't that. So, let's go down there and give it a right old bash. But in the meantime, let's not forget about Liverpool. We owe Liverpool one. They're the only team that beat us this season, and it was an absolute disgrace. I mean, it was a 98th minute goal. I mean, the old bandits used to have the decency to wear a mask, didn't they? I mean, they just did it blatant. I mean, Isaac had a wonderful second goal ruled off. It famously, as Malcolm says, because his shadow was offside. And then they go and score in the 98th minute. I mean, I just want, what I want to see on Saturday? I want to see Klopp running up and down the touchline, waving his arms like a windmill, leaping up and down, eyes bulging, grey beard making him look twice the age he really is. You know why? Because Liverpool are on the clots when he's
Even
doing
shouting.
that. It means we are winning. So I'm looking forward to Klopp giving it the old Conte and routine on Saturday tea time, because we would be doing very well, thank you, if he's doing that. And he's done that a lot this season.
Malcolm, a lot of people in the chat today and this week talking about set pieces, and Newcastle, have conceded a few goals from set pieces in recent weeks, but it's not taking their opportunities up front, which probably is contributing vastly to them not scoring goals. And we're getting a lot of corners. We've got big lads in the team, but we just don't seem to be, running in and mixing it up a little bit. And like I used to say on a Sunday morning, they're standing like tins of milk.
Yeah, you use the phrase running in, and that's something that Newcastle don't seem to be doing. That it's all very static. When you're static, it's easy for a defender to mark you. But movement, you can always get away from a defender. You can always then find a yard of space somewhere, even in a fairly crowded penalty area. And so I would like to see more movement from players. Some of the balls that come in from Trippier, they're absolutely fabulous. But if you're on a run, you've got much more of a chance of getting on the end of it than you have by standing still.
Ironically, and it was a little bit alarming, wasn't it? The way we have conceded with 2 goals against West Ham and against Bournemouth, because they were absolutely identical. A corner knocked in with a bit of pace on it to the near post, a flick on by a forward, taking it over the head of where 2 big men who were put central, normally say Byrne and Joe Linton, and then somebody totally unmarked at the back post, knocking in the ball. These days, when you don't have somebody on the post, then those efforts go straight in, whereas it would have been fodder for a fullback on the post in the old days. But
sure, John, you make a very good point there, a really good point. And I always think that it's much. A keeper can't reach the posts, so you're inviting problems in the very first place. And I always believe that you should have somebody on the far post and ready to clear at any time.
I mean, we were. I'm not having a go at the defence, which has kept us afloat all season, and I love them to death. But on those 2 goals, I mean, if you take the last one in Bournemouth, Trippier admitted he lost his man who did the flicked it on with his head. The 2 big guys in the centre of the goal, and we saw this against West Ham, were completely taken out by the flick on. Against West Ham, it skimmed over the top of Joe Linton's head and Byrne ducked underneath it. Then it goes to the bloke at the back post, and he's unmarked. Isak was standing at Bournemouth. Isak was standing on their centre half when their guy went over to take the corner and put his hand on the ball and looked into the penalty area. Isak has got their centre half in front of him, so he can see where the centre half is. When the ball's kicked, the centre half makes a movement and Isak stays where he is. And therefore, when it comes to the centre half, he's completely free and he tucks it in. And criminal mistakes, because they're off set pieces, and you ought to be able to mark up set pieces better than in open play. And as you said, Malcolm, and you, Steve, the interesting thing is we are conceding on corners like that, yet when we get corners, and we've got big fellas like Joe Linton and Byrne and Botman and everybody going in their box, we don't look dangerous.
Yeah, it's definitely a concern, something that Eddie Howe has to work hard on the training ground to rectify, I think. And It's it's a big concern. Let's just say. Just looking at Paul Gallant's thing, just been reading the Chronicle about expansion to 75,000. I like what I read. Let's hope the council sorts this out. Your ground expansion, Malcolm, has been on the agenda as well on the Newcastle timeline this week. They do need more. They do need more. It seems that
the council are very. Yeah, it's that the council, the council leader, he's very much in favour, and he's doing all he can to help, which is great, because they can make it or break it. The council
and the football club stimulates the city, doesn't it? The football club stimulates the city,
yes,
Malcolm. Therefore, the council should be looking at that and saying, we want Newcastle to be.
Yes, and apart from the fact it brings in more revenue, it's actually satisfying everybody. At the moment, there are so many people who are desperate to be at St James Park to see the games, and they can't get a sniff of a ticket. And this would add, good heavens, 22,500.
Makes a huge difference. But as we said last week, Steve, Newcastle United could fill Wembley on its own a week on Sunday.
Yeah.
The punt is we could fill Wembley with just our fans if they give us 100,000 tickets. There's no question about that, because we get 50,000 in to watch Bournemouth at home. 50,000 Geordies and their 2,000 away fans. We get 50,000 in to watch us play Bournemouth in a alleged run-of-the-mill league game. So on, special occasions, there's no question that it needs to be bigger. And isn't it wonderful that we're saying that? And I think the reason why the council and everything will think favourably of it is because it looks as if this won't be a flash in the pan. When we finish fifth top under Ashley, and it's hard to think that we actually did that, how much of a fluke was that? When Pardew was manager, we finished fifth top and decided that we only need to buy one bloke in the summer, and that was Anita, bless him. And that would be good enough because we'd managed to stay up. Not get fifth top, we'd managed to stay up. And of course, we went back to being what we were by nature, which was a relegation side. But, that was always going to be a flash in the pan season. This isn't going to be a flash in the pan season. This is building towards sustained power to keep us round the top 6, round the top 4, even better than that, and having a real dip every year in the 2 domestic cups and in Europe. So this is where Manchester City were after they were taken over. So the council can look and say, well, this isn't going to be a one-off, and then the stadium goes back to having 40,000 in it, and it holds 75, and it looks half empty. That isn't going to happen, because Newcastle will fill that stadium, because we will, God willing, be bombing at the right end of the table season upon season. So that's terrific. But before it gets like that, let's beat Liverpool, and then let's beat Manchester United, and by Jove, the sun will come out then, won't it?
Question by Malcolm and John: who do you think will win the league after last night's game? Of course, Manchester City went into the top spot, Malcolm, last night with a 3-1 win against your old club Arsenal, but still a long way to go, Malcolm, isn't it?
Arsenal still have a gun over Man City, and they're even on points. Although and some of the football that Arsenal have played this season has been absolutely fantastic. But I have that sneaky feeling that Man City, now that they've got into this position through last night's 3, I think that they're not going to lose it. They're going to really fight and scrap and play and they've got the talent to do it. They've got the numbers to do it. And they're used to doing it. You know, I remember watching Man City when Newcastle were 3-1 up earlier in the season, and there Pep Guardiola. He came and started shouting a few things onto the pitch, and it jolted the players. And some of the football they played in that next 20 minutes, it was absolutely mesmerising. And I'd never seen anything quite like that, I don't think. And if they can start to turn it a 20-minute period every game, turn it like that, my word, it's absolutely frightening what they can achieve. So I think that Man City will probably just nick it.
I think what Malcolm has said is absolutely true. I went with Miles with Manchester City, and the one sentence Miles said that stuck out for me is that they're used to doing it, and they are. They've won 4 out the last 5. This is new territory for the kids at Arsenal. As bright as they are, the young boys at Arsenal, they're up at the top, going for the title. This is something new. This is walking on virgin territory. They haven't done it before. It can get to you the same way as perhaps being in a Champions League position is getting to us at the moment. I think they've gone slightly off the boil. I think Manchester City will win again. I'm flipping bored with them winning it because it'll be 5 out of 6. I mean, I'm sick of them winning it. It's about time to give somebody else a chance. Why don't they concentrate on winning the Champions League? But I think they will win it. They've got huge strength in depth to win it. And I think they will. The only thing that'll stop them, of course, is our next league game after Liverpool's away Man City. And when we beat them 4-0, Arsenal will be flying on the back of our result. But by the way, isn't it ludicrous as well? I read something before the game last night, and I've been reading it quite a lot recently. Man City, a great debate over whether Haaland has spoiled their side because of the way they play. This bloke has scored 28 goals. He scored the last 28 goals by the halfway stage, but he's spoiling the team. By the way, if he wants to come as a straight swap, we'll give them Callum Wilson, we'll give them Isaac, and we'll get Chris Wood back from on loan and give them him as well, and we'll take Haaland, and he can spoil our team.
Yeah. Oh, wouldn't you love to be spoiled in that way?
Oh, yeah, I love that sort of thing. I love centre forwards of Newcastle getting 30 goals a season and ruining our season.
Yeah. I mean, tiredness has been mentioned a little bit, Malcolm, over the last couple of weeks. Are you seeing signs of tiredness amongst that Newcastle United team?
I don't think it's the kind of tiredness that maybe people are thinking. It's a sort of mental pressure.
Absolutely, Malcolm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've mentioned it a few times, Malcolm, and it's difficult. Perhaps people just see the word tiredness and you immediately look at people's legs and see if they're not running so much. Mental tiredness is a total different thing, but it's as debilitating as physical tiredness. And I think there's unquestionable signs of Newcastle being mentally tired. But I don't think it can be physical. If Newcastle are physically tired, we're in big trouble because there's a phone call. I think he's been asked if he can play on tomorrow night. And there's been signs that we've been mentally tired. You can't be physically tired. We've only played in 2 competitions all the way because the FA Cup lasted 1 round, and that's the League Cup and the League. If we are physically tired, we're in big trouble, mind, because next season we'll be playing in the Premier League, the FA Cup, the League Cup, and Europe. So, that's when you can get physically tired. No, it's been picked up by a lot of fans, and I can understand why, in a different way. I don't think it's a physical tiredness. I think it's a mental tiredness. It's between the head, it's the pressure, it's the burden, it's the relentless. Are we going to win a cup at Wembley, or we're going to get in the Champions League? Crikey me, the Champions League. I mean, we used to be grateful to get into the Northumberland Senior Cup final. So it's a new sort of pressure young lads. Not the young lads, guys, aren't used to the pressure. Outside of trips, the won La Liga with Atletico Madrid. Who's used to fighting at the top end of the table? I mean, Callum Wilson wasn't at Bournemouth. Byrne wasn't at Brighton, and before that, Darlington and Fulham.
Yes.
It's completely new to a lot of these guys. I mean, Bruno might have been in France, but it's a different league in France, not in the Premier League. Pressure cooker, not used to that sort of thing. Almiron hasn't been used to that sort of thing. It's different. There's only about Trippier that is used to fighting at the top level and taking it in his stride. It's tough, and I think we're finding it tough at the moment. I'm hoping we'll fight our way out of it, because if we get a result against Liverpool, that'll put us a jaunty step in Man United. And if we then beat Manchester United, even if it took extra times and even if it was penalties, if we win the cup and they bring it back here, I don't think you'll see any mental tiredness from Wembley to the end of the season. I think we'll be flying again. We'll be flying again.
I think it was interesting, Malcolm,
Absolutely.
isn't it, that we said there could be a mental fatigue from the World Cup.
Yes. In this country, we find it very, very odd to have a mid-season break, which the World Cup forced on us. Plus the fact that that certain players they travelled all the way over there, and it does take it out of you. But and it seems that from the World Cup, have we ever got sort of back into that flow? We're lacking that flow that we had, I think, beforehand, well, quite how to put it back in, I really don't know. How do you get back into that flow? You just, and it's as much mental as I think as it is physical. There's, I watch. This is why I think I'm finding that Sean Longstaff is doing so well, because he's just doing the same thing every week and really doing it well. He's covering a huge amount of ground. He's constantly in support of just about everybody that's there on the pitch, and you would think that a youngster like him would maybe suffer by it. He's not. He's just absolutely gobbling it up, and he's playing as if there's no pressure on him at all. And yet you look at the likes of Willock, he's finding it a bit of a struggle, as are others. And I think it's as much in here, between the ears, as it is anywhere else in the body. And when players get out of, when that's sort of taken out of their normality, as they were with a break for the World Cup, a month's break in the middle of the season. Dear me, that's there are some countries that are used to that, but not here, and it does upset the equilibrium of a great many players. We're finding it difficult to get back into it. Maybe that's the pressure of being up high in the league, where we haven't been used to it, and I think that what we're going to be looking back on as far as this season is concerned, it's what's called experience. A lot of players are gaining a lot of experience. They'll have the break in the summer, and come next season, they'll be absolutely spot on. What I used to find when I was, because I, as manager of Fulham, I started bringing quite a number of youngsters through. And what I found with them was that they would play really well for about 4 games. And then come the 5th game, they would just start to drop some in form. The 6th game, you could see that they were leggy and a bit tired, more mentally tired. And so I used to take them out and just give them 3 or 4 games just to get that. They were still in the squad, and they were traveling with the first team, but they sort of rejuvenated. And when they came back, they were a lot more experienced. All the learning had sort of fallen into place in their head, and they didn't suffer from that tiredness ever again. And Newcastle, see, it's the same for Newcastle. That all right, Trippier is fine because he's seen all of this before, but a lot of the players haven't, and it's all new to them, and new things. They mentally tire you, and I've seen it happen at a number of clubs with youngsters coming into the side, and it can happen with senior players who go into something new. What I think we'll see next season will be quite extraordinary. It will all have fallen into place, and they'll be much better for it.
Yep. Okay. Newcastle United take on Liverpool this Saturday, 5:30 kickoff live on Sky Sports. The match, as always, these days is sold out. The game will be preceded by a War Flags display celebrating the life of Sir Bobby Robson on what would have been his 90th birthday. There'll also be a bucket collection outside the ground by Whitley-based Sporting Club Girls, the under-9s to the under-16s, raising money for their club, as well as the regular food bank activity. And don't forget, if you put something into the food bank collection buckets, they get doubled by Jamie Rubin. No news on the team. We do know, of course, that Bruno will serve his 3rd of his 3-match ban. Joe Willock last week looked unlikely to feature this week, let's face it, but we'll find out more at Eddie Howe's press conference. ASM and Miguel Almiron, as I mentioned at the top of the programme, have returned to training after going off on Saturday. And no news on Callum Wilson. He is reportedly, though, training separately after missing last week's game. Jamal Lascelles is also back training with the first team. Matt Targett and Javier Manquillo are both nearing a return to action. And Harrison Ashby is still building up his fitness. Joe Linton does go into the game on 1 yellow card short of an automatic 2-game Premier League suspension. But if he was booked in the game against Liverpool, that wouldn't affect him appearing at Wembley the following week. The only thing that would do that, of course, is a straight red card, which would mean he was suspended. Ahead of Liverpool's trip to SJP, they did win the Merseyside derby 2-0, and that is their first Premier League victory in 5 attempts. On the road this season, Liverpool have won just twice at Spurs and at Villa. They've drawn at Fulham and Everton. They've lost the other 6 games. Alcantara, Fernando Diaz, Milo and Konate are all out. Referee this weekend has been announced, and that's Anthony Taylor, which is his first Newcastle United game of the season. And VAR is Chris Kavanagh. So, John, how do you see this one going?
Great question. I mean, the difference in Liverpool's phenomenal, isn't it? Last season, they almost won all 4 competitions they were in. They did win 2, FA Cup and League Cup. They finished second, 1 point behind Manchester City, so they almost won the league. And they were in the Champions League final and only lost 1-0 to Real Madrid, so they almost won that. They almost did the quartet. And this year, they're 9th. They're coming up here 9th. Now, you know, at the end of last season, guys, who would have said Newcastle will be at home to Liverpool in February And Newcastle will be fourth top in the Champions League position and Liverpool will be ninth. You would have been laughed out of court. But that is the way it is. The home record is the only reason they're as high as ninth. 7 wins, 3 draws, 1 defeat. But as you pointed out away, it's 2-2-6. So there's nothing to be scared of. They come here having lost 3 successive away games to Brentford, Brighton and Wolves. So there's nothing to be afraid of bar ourselves. The only thing I'm afraid of is ourselves. I'm not afraid of Liverpool. I'm a little bit afraid of what we might do or might not do, etc., etc. But I want to stay positive. I am staying positive. I'm worried about midfield because I think we'll get through up front because I think the lads will be fit enough to do that. I'm worried about midfield, where if Willock's out and Bruno's out, we've got Joel in Longstaff and Ian Hiller, and I'm worried about who the Ian Hiller is going to be. So I've got a concern there, and that's always a competitive area against Liverpool. They've been dodgy there, so we could take advantage of that with the right personnel. What am I going to go for? Well, I'm sick of going for it now. In Newcastle, win in the draw. I've done that for 6 weeks, but what am I going to do this week? I'm going to go for a Newcastle narrow win, and please don't draw. I don't want to forecast anything but a Newcastle win the week before we go to the cup final, because that's a perfect result for the cup final. A draw isn't really, and a defeat doesn't even bear thinking about. So I'm going for Newcastle to win by a single goal, whether that's 1-0 or 2-1.
Malcolm?
Yeah, I saw Liverpool at Craven Cottage a little bit earlier in the season, and Fulham were absolutely brilliant against them. They just went at them. They were quick. They passed it, and Liverpool really looked quite lost. And in the penalty area, dear me, they looked woeful. They were jittery. There was just no confidence in the defence at all. And it was only a rally towards the end that got Liverpool back into the game in the sort of last 15, 20 minutes. And it was a shame for Fulham because they thoroughly deserved to beat Liverpool that day. We've got to go out with that same kind of confidence and be prepared to put a lot of running in. And if we do that, and we get pushed up a lot more than we have been doing, and look to play in their penalty area, in and around their penalty area, more than other areas of the pitch, I think we'll be all right. Liverpool, they can struggle to score this season. I never thought I'd hear myself saying that, but they are doing, and I'm going to rely on that defence to keep a clean sheet again with Nick Pope, and that we are going to nick a goal. I'll take us to win 1-0.
Yeah, I'm going to go 1-0 as well. Isak to get the winner. Assist by Anthony Gordon. That's it. You kind of get more.
I would definitely go for that. Isak owes them one after what happened at Anfield.
Oh, doesn't he just, John?
And Anthony Gordon, as an Evertonian, would half like to stick it up Liverpool. So I'll settle for
yes.
that. Yeah,
wouldn't he just?
He's going to want to have a real go at Liverpool for his family and everybody, isn't he?
Isak with a George Riley-esque header.
Well, I mean, the mind boggles at the thought of that again.
That was 1-0. I was there.
Yeah, old Mother Riley. Yes. I've been trying to forget about that, but there it is. The sights in front of me, old tired eyes, as we speak.
Just to let people know as well, Malcolm and Gibbo will be at the fan zone, which is at the old O2 Academy for the final, Newcastle United versus Manchester United, 3:00 till 3:30. If you want to get tickets for that, it's www.fanzonenewcastle.co.uk, and it will be a good old day, I'm sure. Let's hope Newcastle get the result. And I just wanted to share this with you lads as well. Somebody posted this into me. Bill Elliott, a good friend of the show, he used to produce these apparently, and apparently this is a little tribute to the one and only goal that Frank Clark scored. Aye, so there we go. A little bit of history. And the guests on this particular event were Malcolm MacDonald and Brian Clough.
Yeah.
Yes.
There you go. Fantastic. Great stuff.
Yeah, dear old Cluffy. Yeah, but I shall never forget that moment when Frank scored. It was his only ever goal. We were playing Doncaster in the League Cup, and we were already 5-0 up. Doncaster were well beaten, and Frank has got to the edge of the box, and he struck the ball. And, you know, and what he was doing there, I don't know, because he hardly ever crossed the halfway line, for heaven's sake. But he struck it, and it went right in the corner. It was a lovely goal, and all of the players went and picked him up, and we had him on our shoulders, and we were carrying him around at the Gallagate end. And anyway, so Frank, somewhat embarrassed, he got down, and we all sort of trooped back and got the game restarted. And the centre half of Doncaster said to me, "What the hell was going on there?" He said, "What was that nonsense about?" He said, "Sixth goal." He said, "What was it all about?" And I said, "He's been playing for Newcastle forever and a day, and he's never scored before. It's his first goal."
I remember watching Morris Setters, who was the Donny manager that day.
That's right.
He was a very well-known Manchester United defender. I remember watching him, and his reaction was the same as your centre-half.
Yeah.
You've already won, and the whole crowd's gone crackers because of Frankie. And I remember,
it wasn't just the players; it was everybody in the ground, wasn't it? That
I've got a picture
Frank.
of the next home game, and I forget what it was. The next home game, there I am standing on the pitch before the kickoff at St James's Park with this inscribed silver salver from the Chronicle to present to Frank as a memento of his goal. Well, you must have 150 silver salvers if you got one every goal you scored, Malcolm. Do you still serve Sunday lunch roast beef off the silver salver? Because I'm certain Frank does down in Nottingham with this Chronicle silver salver. Can you imagine that happening today? I don't know that the Chronicle would put out the money for the silver salver today, but
No, I don't think
perhaps
so.
it's wrong. Perhaps there's a silver salver waiting for Joe Linton or Miggy Almiron after he scores the winner at Wembley. And if either of them do, I'll pay for the silver salver myself, by the way. I would be that great.
Right. But I think, John, that Frank, that he didn't like all the fuss. He really didn't. And it went on for quite some time after the match. And that's why he never scored again.
I was going to say, I know why he didn't like the fuss, which was confirmed, is because he never did it again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely confirmed that he didn't like the fuss thing. He always has a little go at me, and he's coming up here to do a gig for Wraith shortly, and he'll be on about it. He always said, "Gibbo, I did score again, but it was at Nottingham Forest." Cloughie, being eccentric, they played away in East Anglia, it was Ipswich or something, and he took off his centre forward at half time because his centre forward got a bit lippy with Brian in the dressing room. So Brian whirled round on his centre forward and said, "You in the bath. And he suddenly told Frank to warm up, and Frank said to go on for the second half, and Frank said, I wondered how he was going to shuffle the team to get me in at left back. He said, and he never said anything. So as I was leaving the dressing room, I said to Cloughie, "Gaffer, what do you want me to do?" He says, "Whatever have you done, son? Brought off the centre forward, play centre forward." Frank said, "Good God." So he went, and I think he was playing some tough guy centre half, and he went over to the centre half and he said, "Look, if you don't bother me, I won't bother you. I've just come on as a sub, and I've been told by Brian to play centre forward, but I don't want to kick, and if you don't bother me, I won't bother you." What happened? Forest won 1-0, and Clarkey scored the goal from a corner. But they didn't grab him around the pitch that day. I think he buggered off a bit quickly because he was embarrassed. But he played centre forward and scored. That's a good quiz question.
Great
Oh,
stuff.
yeah.
Memories. Geordie Timberlake was there when Frank scored. David John Cook was as well. Thanks for that, lads. Absolutely brilliant. Great recollections. And enjoy the game at the weekend. Until next week, take care, lads.
Indeed.
Take care,
Enjoy
boys.
the game.
Bye-bye, mate. Bye.